In 1942, the British military tried to win World War II with a 2-million-ton aircraft carrier made of ice. It sounds like a joke, but at the time, the Atlantic was a graveyard. Hitler's U-boat wolfpacks were winning. The Allies had a massive problem known as the Mid-Atlantic Gap, a brutal, out-of-reach stretch of ocean where land-based planes simply couldn't provide air cover. They desperately needed a floating island to launch sub-hunting aircraft. But with a global war raging, they didn't have the steel to spare to build one. The solution came from a wildly eccentric British scientist named Geoffrey Pyke. His plan? Build a 2-million-ton aircraft carrier out of ice. He called it Project Habakkuk, a biblical reference to achieving the impossible. Now, ordinary ice is brittle. It shatters upon impact and melts quickly in seawater. But Pyke discovered that if you mix exactly 14% wood pulp with 86% water, you get a new supermaterial, Pykrete. It's as tough as solid concrete, completely bulletproof, and, crucially, it melts incredibly slowly due to the insulating properties of the wood. Legend has it, Lord Mountbatten was so desperate to prove its strength that he staged a demonstration during a highly classified meeting with Winston Churchill and Allied commanders. Rather than being court-martialed, Mountbatten got his funding. That's when Churchill gave the green light. Deep in the Canadian Rockies, far from prying German eyes, they actually built it. On Patricia Lake in Alberta, they constructed a 60-foot prototype. It looked like a mundane wooden shed from the outside, but inside, it was a massive, labyrinthine refrigeration system pumping cold air to keep the hull frozen solid. And it worked. For one whole summer, it didn't melt. The final blueprint was staggering. The HMS Habakkuk was going to be 2,000 feet long, displacing over 2 million tons. Its walls would be 40 feet thick. It was literally torpedo-proof. A U-boat strike would just cause a minor crater that could be repaired on the spot by pouring in seawater and freezing it. So why aren't there colossal ice islands in the ocean today? 2 words: engineering and range. The mechanical refrigeration required to keep 2 million tons of ice frozen in the middle of the Atlantic was an absolute logistical nightmare. They would need thousands of miles of steel piping, the very material they were trying to save in the first place. Furthermore, by 1944, new long-range bombers and escort jeep carriers finally closed the Mid-Atlantic Gap. The U-boat threat was neutralized. The ice ship was a miracle of science that was simply no longer needed. The prototype in Canada was abandoned. It took 3 full, scorching summers for the reinforced ice to finally melt back into the lake. It remains a ghost of a project that almost changed the face of the war. But Project Habakkuk is just the tip of the iceberg. It is just one of the insane maritime miracles we are looking at today. Get ready, because we are counting down 5 of the most impossible naval stories in military history.